Morning, YouTubers. So, not going to be a very long video. I just wanted to touch base with you guys. Uh, Woke up this morning and watched a video about racism, sexism, and slavery in Dungeons and Dragons. So, apparently, there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about Dungeons and Dragons being a racist game because orcs orcs. I mean, if we go back to the origin of orcs, um, and Tolkien, well, Tolkien was actually a racist. That's undeniable. So was Lovecraft. Men of their time, they, considered the darker skinned people savages because that's what they were told. That's what they learned from their schools and their, you know, that was what the word was. The savage, the noble savage idea became important from the 1960s, I think, or maybe a little before, maybe. Um, but in the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, there was the European white world, and there was the racist, the lower races that lived in Africa and in Latin America, you know, and the Orientals were not considered. They didn't, go much into the conversations, but they were actually mostly to be colonized and conquered and dominated by the almighty European and especially the Christian religion. So, so what happens? What happens is that World War II comes around, and Average Joe, hey, cut up, you like, nice to tune in. I'm listening. Hey, Average Joe. So the conversation today, and that's going to be a short one because I've got a lot of stuff to do. Um, Racism, sexism, and slavery and free speech. So my theory here, Joe, since you're here watching, thanks for watching, by the way. Um, our storytelling, our storytelling deals with all these things automatically. You can't separate Tolkien from racism because orcs. The orcs are trying to, literally eat the Westerners, and the Easterners are the bad guys too. So it's part of the Volkgeist of Tolkien to be automatically racist against orcs. You're not going to include orcs as your friends in a Tolkien book because that's not what it's about. It's about the survival of the West, and especially of the hobbits. Now within Tolkien, there's a kind of like a canopy of various races, elves, dwarves, hobbits, that represent real races in our world. You know, I believe he wanted the dwarves to represent Jews because of the of the greediness, which is also racist. But you know, elves who represented, of course, the Anglos, uh, or maybe the Hyperboreans, because Tolkien was into all types of stuff like that. Elves represented the highest achievement, racial achievement, and orcs the most horrid of races created by torturing and defiling elves. So Tolkien couldn't have made the Lord of the Rings if he wasn't aware of racial differences. And now we're told, in a sense, that we can't discuss these things. that it's politically incorrect, and that I find a much greater danger because that's actually about censorship and what we can and cannot say. So the whole conversation comes around because some YouTuber did a expose of racism in Dungeons and Dragons, and he argued validly that you can't play Dungeons and Dragons if orcs are not beastly and terrible. It just doesn't make sense. And and on the higher perspective, there is no difference in the sense between orcs and elves. They're sentient beings. They have demi-human faces. So they're almost human, right? They're not quite human, but they are human. Like they have societies, they have children, they raise children, and then yet we are automatically supposed to assume that killing an orc is okay and killing an elf is not. So I just put it out there to be observed. I don't, I don't think that it's fair to orcs, especially, to decry them as the inferior species, the inferior race. Okay. Orcs certainly probably wouldn't think that, would they? But they exist, and they exist for a reason. In the uh, in the greater scheme of things, if we talk about racism, nationalism, there is China, and there's Europe, and there's Latin America, and there's Africa, and all their interests are different because the interests of the Chinese are not necessarily going to be the same interests as of the English or the Germans or the Americans, or the Mexicans. And I'm not saying that nations are racist; they're not. Most nations by now are uh, multiracial, but there are tribes and there are ethnic divisions of them. And to not respect those ethnic divisions and think that we can all be uh, melded into the same soup, the melting pot, they call it. In America, they call it melting pot. United States is the melting pot. Well, the melting pot is actually a dreadfully terrible idea because it totally wipes out any self identification of any group at any one time. No group can identify itself as different from others. And that's not fair to the species. You have to have the ability to differentiate yourself from other humans within the realms of your family. And they do it all the time, by the way. You do it naturally, it's a natural process. I give you an example. If you're born into the Rothschild family, or if you're born into the Soros family, or if you're born into the royal family in England, by the mere fact that you're born a royal, you're going to have other rights than ordinary Englanders, or ordinary English people. So we're expected to believe that we're all equal when we're not by a far shot. And we're expected to believe that our purpose as human beings is to level the playing field so that we're all equal. But there's always going to be some people on top. There's always going to be one group here or there that is not equal, and they know they're not equal because they're better than us. They have more money. They're better looking. Hollywood, which is controlled by you know is all about that. It's all about that. If you have the right. Off topic, but do you think these species existed at one point in time? Orcs and and elves and all that. It's us. All those orcs and elves and hobbits are us. There is proof. There's archaeological proof that there was little people that lived in, I believe, where did they find that guy? They found him in Europe somewhere. No, I don't remember where they found him. They found hobbits. South Africa, I would say. I don't know. But they found like miniature people. They exist right now, Joe. Today, in the world, there's a dwindling race of pygmies in Africa, and they're being literally extinguished by the same reason that the Huicholes and the Rapa Nui and all the other races are being extinguished by a lack of respect for their traditions and their ways and their, it's like if you're not part of us, you're going to become extinct. Basically, there's people in the Amazon, right? 4 foot high. I've actually pygmies in Africa in the Amazon. There's some very short people, um, and they're totally different physiognom. The physiology of these people are totally different from like ordinary mestizos or from us basically. And it's okay to be different. It's not it's not against you that you're a pygmy. I think being a pygmy is a great thing. Now, how do you protect pygmies from the larger African culture that wants to literally extinguish them because A, they're afraid of them, and B, they don't get along? It's very difficult. And I think it boils down to one simple thing: Lebensraum, space to live. Different races, different tribes have to have their own space to live. They can't be encroached by the rest of the mongrels that are we that are we. We are the mongrels in a sense. And colonialism and actually European centrism absolutely destroyed um, that right to self determination, especially in India, in Africa, in Asia. And now they destroyed it in their own land by bringing all the immigrants in and saying, this is Europe. Welcome to Europe. Become European. It's this, and you know what's funny about all that is that it actually benefits very few. All that actually benefits a very small elite group that know that they're doing it on purpose, and they know their their purpose is to make everyone equal. It's this um, hell. I mean, the right wingers call it social what political no Marxism. It's called what the fuck is it called? Uh, uh, like what is it? Scientific Marxism, social Marxism. I think it's called. Uh, and the point is that to defeat the Nazis, you had to literally destroy their identity. You had to destroy the identity of the Aryans because in their identity was the whole purpose of their existence. We are the Aryans. We are the rulers of Europe. We are the chosen ones, the chosen race. And they were not Jews. They were not they were Mussolini. I mean the bring back the Roman Empire. Let's be Romans again. Let's bring back the glory of Rome. Well, Hitler did it with his people. It didn't end up too well for him. I mean, it backfired badly. But in the events of World War II, this kind of like prejudice against self identity as a race uh, began to be culturally promoted. And it's funny because it's actually not always it's not across the line. I mean, self identity is necessary if you want to survive as a as a as an ethnic group. Ethnic cleansing is when you no longer have an ethnic identity. That then you've been ethnically cleansed, right? That's the whole point of ethnic cleansing, is to destroy any type of idea of your own race. Well, I'm a mixed race guy. I mean, my dad's an American, my mom's a Mexican. My mom comes from Mexican royalty, so to speak, but we do have indigenous Mexican blood in our veins, Purepecha blood, you know, of which we're very proud. Purepecha is a warrior race, so Purepechas, but we're actually just mixed race nuts. We're not, we've been already ethnically cleansed in a sense. We can't claim to an ethnic identity, but we should respect ethnic identities and people that have them. The vast majority of human beings on the planet don't have ethnic identity. They cannot claim to be this or that because they're mixed, right? A few, very few hidden, faraway people do have ethnic identities. Pygmies come to mind. There are traditional villages in Mexico where people cling on to their traditions. They marry amongst their own uh, race. Otomis, Masawas, uh, Purépechas, and they don't go out and mix with the rest. Most of them have already been ethnically cleansed by the Catholic Church, which is the greatest ethnic cleanser of all. We're all going to be Catholic. We're all going to be one race, one religion. Man, those guys really did a job on the world. So, what is my argument? What am I trying to get to here? Trying to get to the fact that if you're a young Purepecha who is born into a culture that is very specific to your race, and you're told by the larger community that you should become a Mexican and not worry about your traditions and all that, you're being ethnically cleansed when you know it. And ethnic cleansing is powerful force in the world. I mean, this mongrelization of the world is just steamrolling through communities all over the world right now, and it's only going to succeed if those communities are not strong in their traditions and in their ways of being and thinking. The most elite communities are very traditional. If you go to the Queen of England, she is as traditional as she's going to get. She has a very specific idea about religion, about power. We don't know what it is because we're not them, but we know they have a very specific and pigeonholed concept of all those things because that's what holds them together. Royalty is held together by a common belief in royalty. That's what Jesus tried to do. Yeah, Jesus. So Jesus is an interesting guy. Jesus said, there is no chosen of God. Well, he didn't actually say it, but he implied it in a sense when he went down to, be with the whores and the tax, the guys that charge the taxes, or the guys, what do they call them? In fact, my brain is dry. Tax collectors and whores. So Jesus did that. But I think, in a sense, the books in the Bible talk about Jesus, which are not complete because there's a whole bunch of apocryphal writings about Jesus, forbidden writings about Jesus, like about his childhood, where he actually threw a kid off the roof, killed the kid in the fall and came back down and healed him back to life. That's not a story that is very commonly told about Jesus. It's not in the Bible. And it's not in the Bible because in the Council of Nicaea of 1312, the church officials, the church officials decided which books were going to be allowed in the Bible and which were not. And that's when the Bible was decided to have the 66 books of the Bible were decided. Are you telling the number 66 books of the Bible? Anyways, point is, mongrelization and ethnic cleansing are tools of the powerful to do away with the identities of communities that could defend themselves from those powerful. That's a fact. It's called cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism. And the powerful become then actually the leaders of the party or whatever it may be that fuels that cultural Marxism to exist. What is the cultural Marxism ideal? That we're all equal, that we're all, the same, that our desires, our needs, our concepts of reality are all the same, and they all deserve the same respect. Uh, that any type of um, religious, ethnic, cultural, racial alliance is false, and it has to be utterly vanquished. That's all cultural Marxism. That's why they went into Tibet. That's why the Chinese went into Tibet and just destroyed the Tibetan Buddhists, tortured the priests. That's why That's why Ukraine. It's all tied in. It's all a part of the same ethnic cleansing process of cultural Marxism, and it's now occurring in America. Is now a part of America. America is a land of diversity. But when you can't talk about slavery, when you can't talk about racism, when you can't talk about sexism, when there's taboo subjects, you strike at the very core of the American principle of freedom of speech, which is one of the most amazing, incredible freedoms we've ever had. This idea that, we can say whatever, whenever, because it's in our minds, has to be protected. And it has to be protected because when you start censoring, when Twitter censors Trump, it sends a message out there to the world saying, we know what is good for you and you don't. The President of the United States is not allowed to speak in our platforms, which reach millions and millions and millions of people because he's saying stupid things. So something truly macabre, something truly devilish is happening. And it's taking us straight into George Orwell's 1984. A little late, but that's actually what it is. It's Big Brother is going to decide for you, all of you, that we can and cannot think and say. And that is ethnic cleansing. Anyways, by the way, the first and clearest objective of the ethnic cleanser is to break down the religious and family ties that bring down an identity, a racial or ethnic identity. That's the principal objective of an ethnic cleansing. Anyways, Joe, I have to go check my breakfast because I put something on the stove. That's what I wanted to share with everybody. Love you. Don't get ethnically cleansed, please.